Welcome, everybody, to the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show here on the Grilly Truth. I am your co-host, Mike Goodpastor, with your other co-host, shut your dog up, Brian, you dumbass. Our other co-host, Steve Risley, 1981 national champion. How you doing, Steve? This show started off the way last night's game started off.
We're in a hole already. Brian's new name is Shafino.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Right. All right, and of course we have, as always, for the last week, our from Got Woodson Facebook page, Brian Moore. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great, guys. How you guys up?
It was all right until last night, as last night the Indiana Hoosiers season ended with an 85-69 loss to the Miami Hurricanes. And I mean, to me, the first thing that stands out, number one, second chance points. But the big thing is the athleticism of Miami. And the Indiana's guards and wings were thoroughly dominated in this game. Miami's starting backcourt of Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack is a primary reason that we are done and why the Hurricanes still have a shot to win the national championship. And then you got Jordan Miller, who's a 6'7" wing, who entered the game as the second leading scorer and proved to be a tough cover also. I think this, Steve, from the opening tip, you could tell the difference in athletic ability for both these teams.
Yeah, Mike, I think you're spot on. The athleticism made a difference. There's no doubt they were much more athletic, and I think that's something that Mike's trying to correct in the program, and that just takes time. Certainly the last 2 years he's had, his recruiting stature is going to build, and he's going to be able to garner and pull those athletes in. I along with the athleticism, and I'm not going to rehash what you hashed out because you're spot on. I think the killer, along with the getting out athleticized, is we just got off to a damn slow start. You just can't get 10 to 15 to 17 points down in these tournament games when it's one and done, and you're playing against unknown teams that you haven't played before. It's not like playing in the Big Ten where you know the tendencies of each team. But I think the slow start coupled with the athleticism, and then the athleticism played out on rebounding, which was where I think their athleticism hurt us the most. And it became a recipe for what the end final result was. It doesn't take anything away from the season, but it's disappointing to know that we have beat teams that are better athletes than we were all season long. We've been able to step up and play. Pardon?
Who did we beat that had better athleticism?
I thought Purdue was more athletic than we were.
Really? I think Purdue was built exactly like Indiana. They got a 7'4" guard and then two bad white freshman guards.
Yeah, I think they were more athletic.
This is the way we compare.
I think Michigan was more athletic than we were. I think
they're coached by a dumbass. Remember,
but they were more athletic.
They're still athletic. Yeah, I agree.
I think Michigan State was more athletic than we were, and they become the lone Big Ten team to make it through.
Well, Michigan State is much more athletic than Indiana is, I think.
Yeah, they are.
And the problem is this, though, Steve. The most athletic teams probably in the Big Ten, especially with guards, were probably Iowa and Michigan State, and we lost
Penn State,
or not Michigan State, Penn State.
Penn State, yeah.
And Iowa, Penn State, Michigan State, all together, we were 1-4, and we got humiliated in like 3 of those 4 games.
Yeah. So it's we were somewhat of an athletic team too. The athleticism wasn't our forte, but anyway, I'm beating a dead horse. I think tied with the athleticism, tied with the slow start, brought on the recipe of us having to play catch-up ball, and you get in a tournament and play catch-up ball, you really in trouble. I mean, you got to be really solid to overcome that. And I thought Indiana in the end, and we'll talk about all this in the show, got away from its game plan. It had to because it got behind. But then they made a good run and got caught up, but then they just couldn't sustain it. So I'll talk enough. Mike, I'll give it back to you.
All right. Robert and Michael have made comments we put up. Robert said the guards could not keep their man in front of them. Then we did not rebound. Mike says, Mike is online. Good evening, gentlemen. And then JG, our best athlete, is not a 4. Brian, I mean,
Hmm.
probably the biggest thing I took away from the game was one thing I've asked for all year, and that was when Jalen Shafino came out and basically wrecked the first half and made it so this was probably not a winnable game. He was sat down for the last 5 minutes of the first half, and when they took him out, we were down by 12. When you got to halftime, we were down by 5.
High five.
Started
Mhm.
the second half, we run him in and let him play all 20 minutes. And I know he got hot and hit three or four threes that gave us the lead. But overall, he doesn't want to play defense. And our other guys, Cobb, Galloway, probably too slow to play defense. So I have a couple questions, and I'm going to ask Steve this too. I'm going to start with you. I mean, to me, if you have a team that is extraordinarily quick, you probably don't want to play man against them. Am I wrong here or am I right? Because I know every Indiana fan, because Bobby Knight was here and always said, I'm not going to play zone. Well, Bobby Knight didn't have to play zone because he usually had the 5 best players in the Big Ten or close to it. And number one, the Big Ten's changed. Being the best team in the Big Ten doesn't mean squat anymore. And right now, we are competing against teams that are highly athletic. And I think that when we watched Iowa beat us, when we watched Penn State beat us, Northwestern beat us, they would spread us out like Miami did. And it takes Trace Jackson Davis away from the basket. And then all of a sudden, your guys that can't defend man against really quick guys like Isaiah Wong get destroyed. And there's no help from Trace Jackson Davis because he's 15 feet away from the basket.
Well, I think we're notorious all year when we're playing man to man of overhelping and leaving guys open. So I could say, yeah, we could mix in the zone a little bit. I don't think we'd want to play it all the time.
Why?
Because I don't think our guys are quick enough to get out there, and I think they'd be shooting threes over our head.
Let them. I mean, you're going to lose quicker giving up layups than you are giving guys threes. They shot 33% from three-point range. In Miami, if you look at their history, are a very streaky team. They started the game out hitting everything. By the time the game was over, they shot about the same percentage we did. So my thing is this. I think the quickest thing that gets you beat against Miami is dribble penetration. You have to take away the thing that they are most likely to beat you with. If they beat you shooting threes, let them. Because it's really hard to go an entire game and make threes. And I think it's just like I use an acronym with football or an analogy with football. If you're playing a team that just wants to throw the ball all the time and you play cover 4 and beg them to throw short passes, they'll eventually try to throw the ball deep because that's what they want to do. I just think that in the end here, you have to take away what they want to do and the thing that is your biggest deficit as a team. And if you play zone and make them shoot the ball from outside, I would much rather take my chances with that than Isaiah Wong shooting layups all night.
Well, I mean, conversely, don't you feel? I mean, look at our games. Steve mentioned in the beginning, the team was flat in the beginning. We weren't scoring.
And so that means they're flat.
I don't know that we were flat. We just got out athleticized.
They played like shit.
Yeah, they just played like shit. We weren't flat.
How many shots did we miss in the beginning?
I mean, that doesn't mean you're flat.
Doesn't mean you're flat. This means you can't hit the broadside of a barn right now. I thought the team was competing as best they could. I just think we got athleticized at the beginning of the game. We weren't ready for it. And I think Mike makes a good point that a zone would have slowed them down. You have to realize, Brian, is that the Big Ten of my day is not the Big Ten of today.
No,
true. The Big Ten of my day was a physical league.
But you had speed, too. You had guys like Isaiah Thomas, Ronnie Lester, who were fast as hell.
Isaiah Thomas was the beginning. Magic and Isaiah were really the beginning of the influx of athletes coming into the Big Ten. There were athletes in the league. I'm not going to say, because Greg Kelsler may be the greatest athlete I ever played against in college ball. And I played against a lot of superstars that had great NBA careers. But I think that the moniker of the league then was physicality. Today it's athleticism. It's changing.
But not in the Big Ten. That's the problem. The Big Ten has not changed with that. The Big Ten is still a bunch of big dudes banging.
Not as quick as the ACC or the rest of the world. But I think that a zone In hindsight's always 2020, guys.
I said it before the game on the preview show, if I remember, because you wanted to push him out and defend him.
I know, and we're talking about it now. Mike may have that night mentality still to some degree in his head, where we always did it. We beat teams with man-to-man regardless of our athleticism.
Steve, the thing is this, Knight at Texas Tech and Knight in his last decade at Indiana
played zone.
Did start to play zone.
Yeah, well, sure. He got
because he didn't have the athletes anymore.
Yeah, but I think last night's a perfect example of I agree with Mike in that I would have converted over to a zone. You should always have a zone defense ready to go, even if you're going to play man-to-man 99%.
Did Knight have a zone defense ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we worked on zone for a period of time in practice. We worked on playing. It was a matchup zone, really.
Yeah.
But it was a zone. I mean, you didn't leave your area. You let guys go through. If they wanted to cut through or they wanted to play their guard weaving up front, you let them do it. You stayed in your zone and just picked up man. So it was more of a matchup kind of zone. But we played zone. We probably played it in games more than people think we did. It just looked like typical IU help side defense. It was pretty close. But a zone might have made a difference. I agree with you, Mike. They got hot on the three-pointers for a while, but they ended up shooting about the same three-point percentage as we did. We actually took more three-point shots than they did.
Actually, the stats are relatively even, except for rebounds. Rebounds, second chance points. Rebounding. All right, we got Kenneth says, instead of zoning, why not get to a lineup without two bigs and Cop trying to guard 5 fast players? How about giving a little space on the ball handlers by a step that way if they shoot over you? But do we have 4 guards? Quick? Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. I wouldn't beat up on Miller Kopp. Miller Kopp busts his ass playing defense. Mm-hmm. I think he plays defense as hard.
But Schifino is the guy you would want to bust their ass.
Schifino's the one you got to attack on defensively about dropping the ball for this basketball team. Maybe if Schifino had played to his athletic ability, we could have gotten away with playing man-to-man against them, and it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, don't chuck out 5 threes in the first 5 minutes.
There were too many guys busting their ass guarding their own guys, and then having to cover for Schifino because Schifino didn't feel like he wanted to play defense. So, I think – but I'm not going to beat up on Miller Kopp. And Trey Galloway plays is hard. Those 2 guys play hard defensively.
Yeah, and I can tell you this:
Schifino to play that hard.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
We'd been talking about playing Houston in Kansas on Thursday.
Yeah, because I think the one thing that was obvious is Isaiah Wong was the best player on the court last night. And that's no shot at Trace Jackson Davis, but Isaiah Wong can play.
Last night.
He's fast as hell.
Last night. But if I'm going to build a team, I'm still going to build it around Trace.
I would not. I would take Isaiah Wong in a heartbeat. He's player of the year in the ACC. He'll be a first-round draft pick in the NBA, and he plays hard all the damn time. And it's not a shot at Trace. It's just saying if I'm in the NBA, you want guys that can shoot the ball and take it to the hole. He's a little bit better than that. But Trace is a hell of a player. And I really think that it would not surprise me if all of a sudden Trace shows up in the NBA and he can shoot the ball from the outside a little bit. And then that's really going to piss me off because he didn't do it when he was here.
Robert says Ole defense. I know we call it Matador defense. Same thing. Yeah. Ole! The Matador.
Yeah,
lets the ball go horrible. Right through.
Not an athletic wing. Okay.
Well, he's not an athletic wing. Becky is listening from Indiana after landing at the Indy airport. I guess I don't know why Michael sent her back on her own, but then we've got Robert who says, "Is Jalen Hood-Schifino a first rounder? If it's my team, no way in hell, because I would want somebody that plays defense in the NBA, though, since it seems nobody does anymore." Robert, did I call you Robert, Brian?
Yes.
Do you guys think he's a first-round draft pick? I think he might be. I don't think he is right now, and I don't see when people watch it how they can think he is.
He better keep his ass.
Well, I saw he was up to about 14.
I was talking, Brian.
Oh, I'm sorry. He asked me a question.
I did ask Brian the question.
Jiminy Christmas. I was talking.
I thought it was Jiminy Crickets.
Well, Jiminy Crickets or Christmas, whichever you prefer. But I didn't use the other GC.
Yes, you did. I'm very proud
thinking of you.
I haven't heard a GD or a JC in like a month.
Yeah. Well, God damn it. I'm sorry about that.
Now, see, right there, you damned yourself to hell to make a joke. That'll
I'm
tell you what
already
kind of
going to
person you
hell.
are.
I
When
went to
you
hell.
are with that
I
attitude.
was going to hell the day I signed to play with Knight. Yeah, I think Schifino better come back to college. I agree with you, Mike. The NBA scores are ridiculous. Now the teams are
Yeah,
getting
135, 134.
Pacers lost 140 to 120. You know,
Yeah.
For the All-Star game, that's fine. So
Yeah.
they don't put, but for a regular season game, But and maybe Schifino's ready to go to the NBA. I don't know, but I think he needs to come back to college. I don't think he's
Yeah,
draft
I think he
material.
needs to probably go to a different college, though.
No, I think
why would you want somebody back that don't try? I don't understand this.
You want him to leave as a fan. I'm saying
No, I want him to leave if I'm the coach.
As a coach, I would not want to lose Schifino. I'd want to
Really?
try and coach him into improving his abilities.
I would say this. That is possible, but at the age of 19 or 20, if you're lazy, it's been allowed probably since you were born, and it's going to be really hard to get him out of it. And I think he's a good player, but you got the Cubs kid coming in as a freshman. Well, if he can get it done, I'd rather go with him. Now, if you want to move Schifino to a 2-guard, I can see that.
That's what's going to happen. He's going to get moved. What's going to happen. That's where he belongs.
It's according to what he wants to do because he will be allowed to do what he wants.
Well, in the last 4 or 5 games, I saw Trace Jackson Davis bring the ball up court as much as anybody.
They should have just made him the point guard. He actually looked better doing it than anybody else did. He looked more under control doing it. And actually, him doing that is what made me change my mind. Where I think he can play in the NBA.
In answer to Robert's question, is Schifino a first rounder? No, not this year. I don't think he is this year. I mean,
okay. Michael just asked if Edie just got in the transfer portal for Kansas State today. Brian, look that up real quick. All right. Kenneth says, to me, poor shot selection in a lot of key moments is the number one reason we lose. Rebounding was poor, but something that, I don't know that you can overcome losing to rebounding 48-31, especially when they get, what did they get, Steve? Like 25 or 30 offensive rebounds?
Yeah, at least 20.
And that's ridiculous. I mean, hell, 15 rebounds is probably average offensive, right? 10 or 15.
The Hurricanes grabbed 20 offensive boards and scored 29 second chance points off those 20 offensive rebounds.
And remember when we talked about Kent State and how they had like 19 or 20 offensive rebounds, and I said, and they only got 13 points. I said, you give up 20 to Miami, you're giving up 30 points. I mean, there's a big difference between Miami and Kent State.
That's the ball game right there, Mike and Brian, is 20 offensive rebounds and 29 points off those rebounds.
And what were our second chance points? What were our second chance points?
We don't need to go any farther.
Do we have any second chance points ourselves?
Scored no. Let me see. No, it doesn't. Well, I'm sure we got second chance points, but not 29. I guarantee you that. 20 offensive rebounds and got 29 second chance points off those rebounds. Now, that doesn't mean they put it right back up in. It means they got the rebound, kicked it out, reset their offense, and scored. That's a second chance point. A second chance point is any points you score off an offensive rebound. And that's the ball game, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, Steve, we got a question for you from Dabney Offermine on YouTube. Thanks for the question, Daphne. Why did Norca Dormer, I don't know how to say that name, and I'm not even going to attempt to. We're just going to call him Big N, of Miami over and over have position on Trace right underneath the basket, like directly underneath, perfect position. Was he camping in the paint? Where was the 3-second call?
I'll give you the answer in one word: athleticism. I think he just was possibly a better athlete in the sense of being able to spin, get around. He's quicker, probably equally as good a jumper. Remember, Trace Jackson Davis is not necessarily a great leaper as much as he has incredible timing.
Yeah.
When you watch him block shots, he blocks those shots because it's timing.
He will play in the NBA just because of that, Steve.
Yeah, just because of that alone, he's going to have a solid NBA career. And I watched him do that last night, and I've watched him consistently. He said, "How's this guy blocking so many shots?" his timing is impeccable. I mean, I've never seen a player who can consistently hit the ball at the apex of the shot and not get a goaltending call and the ball be at its highest point.
That one was, if it goes another
One
millimeter,
was
is goaltending.
I
don't think it was.
He got away with one.
I think he got the one right at the top of it. It was perfect.
He was a good foot 16 inches above the rim.
You thought that first one where he got called for goaltending? I thought that was still at the apex.
I thought that was good. I thought that was not goaltending.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily he's a great leader. But if Big N pounded him, I think it's just athleticism. I mean, Trace isn't necessarily a great athlete, what I would call a great athlete. He's a great basketball player.
Yeah.
And he's
a hell of an athlete.
Of course he's a hell of an athlete. But I wouldn't call him a great athlete. He's a hell of an athlete. But he has such incredible timing, and that left hand just destroys people. They don't know how to guard a left-hander with that much ability. So Big N, if he killed him on the boards, it's probably just because he's just a little bit better athlete. That team was just more athletic than we were. We weren't ready for it.
Kenneth has another comment. He says, I agree that Shafino will have a tough time being a first-round pick this year, but I worry about him coming back and turning into Bracy Wright 2.0. But this is the thing now. I don't think he can make as many shots as Bracy Wright to score that many points. So, I mean, seriously, Bracy Wright wasn't a bad shooter. He was just
Shafino needs to come back to IU and let Mike have him for another year.
I think he just needs to go to Purdue, and they give us Edey.
By the way, Edey is not in the transfer portal.
Yeah, Edey's not going anywhere.
Edey's not going anywhere.
And I don't think he is.
With nil money, do you think Edey's going anywhere?
Probably not.
Purdue will wipe.
I think this. The problem is there's not a huge need for 7'4" guys that really are not great athletes. I mean, he's a good athlete for a guy that's 7'4".
I'll tell you what. The way
hey, Steve, real quick, Philip.
Hang on, wait. The way
that's a nice question.
I know, I got it. The way the nil money's going, there's going to be players in college who are going to take a pay cut to turn professional.
No, probably not. But let's see.
Comment on what Knight would have done to offset and negate Miami beating us.
Well, Knight would have had Landon Turner and Ray Tolbert, and the athletic ability would not have been a huge difference too. But.
Yeah, well, he would have upped our physical game. What he would have done, he would have told us to step up physicality, and guys like me would have gotten more minutes, guys that were rough.
No, he'd have benched the guys that weren't being rough. Hook Shafino wouldn't have lasted 3 minutes.
Knight would have benched Shafino and said,
Chuck Franz would have been in.
If you're not going to play my way, then you're not going to play.
We've got to have Chuck Franz on the show sometime. Hopefully he's never heard us
That's
before.
What he would have said. And then he said, Risley, go. And he said, Risley, I don't want Magic Johnson to score another point while you're gardening. Okay, coach.
Nobody's letting you guard.
I'd go in, look at Magic. Magic look at me and goes, God darn it, Risley. I got to go against you for the next 4 minutes till you foul out guarding me, which I did.
All right. Well, they blew you out every time you played them. All right, next.
But Knight would have upped the physicality to
any good coach
athleticism.
Would. All right, real quick.
He wouldn't have gone to zone, which would have been a mistake.
Philip, well, he never had that big of a difference in athletic ability with teams, though. And if you remember, wait a second, the 1984 upset in North Carolina, he didn't straight up play his own, but it looked like it at a lot of times, but nobody would say it. But if you watch that, when everybody's like 10 feet off the guys they're guarding, and, they kind of did something similar in the 87 Final Four where they let, who the hell was the guard? Wade, where they just let him stand there. He didn't have to shoot. They double teamed. Stacey Augman with that guy. So similar. But Phil says, doesn't Miami have a good chance of making the Final Four? I think they do, Brian and Steve. What do you guys think?
No.
Well, yeah. I looked at – you thought, okay, I'll let Steve go again first.
No. Go ahead.
Steve says Miami has no chance.
No, I don't think they have a good chance.
I think they are going to beat Houston.
Okay.
Well, I was impressed with this kid in the middle, Nostradamus or whatever the hell his name is. But
I like that, Nostradamus.
He's got a 6'11" wingspan. I mean, even though he's 6'7", that guy can board. and he can go up against guys that are a lot taller than them. I think with their outside shooting, I think they have a shot. Now, it's the old adage: you're going to live by the three, or you're going to die by the
Well,
three.
the other
And
thing, Brian, is this. When we look at it, Houston, Texas, and Xavier are all three fast as shit. So they're not going to have a big advantage in the backcourt speed-wise against any of the three teams in their regional semifinal.
yeah, but Houston's also missing one of their key players, aren't they?
Houston is, but Texas and Xavier aren't. And, I mean, Xavier is one of the top 2 3-point shooting teams in the country, and Texas played one of the tougher schedules, beat Kansas in the Big 12 conference tournament. So I still think it's tough going. I think whoever wins Texas Xavier will go to the Final Four, but it would not surprise me if they're playing Miami in the Elite Eight, and I don't think it's a huge stretch that Miami could beat either one of them. I would say Miami against Texas, I would favor Texas 60-40. Miami Xavier, I would favor Xavier 55-45. So I don't think it's like a huge underdog. So I think they could. As long as it ain't Houston, who gives a shit?
Yeah, right.
All I know is that the opponents get tougher and tougher every game you play now. That's why you advance.
This is a good point real quick, Steve, and you may not have known this, but it comes from Robert. Edie is going pro. He is going for the money. He is unable to make nil money as a Canadian.
I didn't know that.
I'd forgotten about it until he brought it up.
Here, let me address Robert's question. Going forward, our All-American is gone. A wasted chance last night? ? No, I don't see it as a wasted chance. Indiana has vastly improved its stature in college basketball.
Yeah.
And where they've benefited the most is going to be their ability to recruit now, because they're relevant again. Mike Woodson in 2 years' time has made that team relevant, and it's disappointing and heartbreaking to lose. We got beat by a more athletic team, and we did not play our best game, last night.
Hey, Steve, I have a
That's
question
the nature
for you.
of the beast.
I have a question for you, Steve. So this is the thing. Doesn't that make next year probably the biggest year of all here for Woody? Because you just lost your All-American. Now we're going to see, is there regression from that? Or if he can rebuild and make this team even better. I think next year defines how good of a coach Mike is right, and how successful he'll be.
I think it puts more weight on his shoulders than this year did, because he had Race and Trace. And
now he's kind of made the bottom for this program, the first or second round of the tournament, instead of where it was before, which was shit.
I expect next year Indiana to be contending for the Final Four. I think that they're going to get that kind of talent into the program. I think if he can develop Schifino and get him to play, you're going to get Johnson back. And Johnson showed maturity before he got hurt. He was maturing and turning into a good leader for this ball club. And if they can develop that, get him to play within himself and keep his butt out of trouble and away from the Bloomington cops, I think that you add him back in the fold. You make Schifino a two guard.
You got Cubs coming too, who may be better than both.
I'm going to tell you right now, Mike, you're going to disagree with this. Schifino can be an All-American next year.
No, I think he could be an All-American right now. I think he can play in the NBA right now. I just think he needs to play freaking defense, or it doesn't matter.
But I think Woody has the ability with his staff, and the.
I don't think he has the ability with the staff. I think Woody is a really good coach.
I don't know his staff.
The assistant coaches from watching
for Indiana's success this year.
I wouldn't. I would give it to Woodson.
Okay. So. No, Woodson's the leader, so you live and die with Mike, but he also has people that are helping him. I shudder to think what this team would have been like with Dane Fife.
Michael, real quick, says, I didn't watch, but what are Michigan State's chances to keep rolling on? I would say this. This is the NCAA tournament. Any damn thing can happen, but it would highly surprise me if Michigan State goes to the Final Four.
And I'm going to say this, Michael. Mike and I have disagreed on this all year long. I think the farther along in this tournament you get, the more important coaching
We have
plays in
never
the tournament.
disagreed on that. I think coaches matter. I don't even know
I
why they
think
have
as long
players
as you
on
have
teams.
Tom Izzo coaching your team in a basketball tournament, you're in better shape than most teams. Now,
yeah, but you're still not going to win at all unless you got – I think this. Kansas State's going to kick Michigan State's ass, and the key here is this. Kansas State's coach is one of the 3 or 4 best in the country.
Okay, well,
and he will take a job. I would love to see him come someplace in the Midwest, just a little bit southwest of Purdue. I mean, I think the guy's that good. And I like Woody. I think Woody's in the top half of coaches in this league.
I agree.
If you watch Kansas State and the way that team plays, I mean, I think Kansas State is going to go to the Elite Eight. And I think Kansas State, before this is over, is going to be in the Final Four. And don't be surprised if Kansas State wins a national championship.
Right now, guys, I'm putting Michigan State in the overachieving bucket.
Yeah.
They're overachieving.
I mean, hell, a team like this is the best thing for Izzo because he takes these guys that were 6 in the Big Ten and now they're, in the Sweet 16.
They're overachieving because of Tom Izzo. That's why it will catch up to them.
Don't you think they're probably the most athletic?
I don't think they'll make the Final Four, but I think this has been a great run for Tom and Michigan State, and I think you're going to see this out of Indiana next year.
Well,
Indiana's going to be a power next year.
The difference is this. Basketball. Indiana, we talked about it before, how long they go is just according to who you're playing. And this was a bad matchup for them. I mean, if you look at it, this may be for the best because, damn, I would hate to have this happen against Houston. And I really think that Texas and Xavier would run them out of the building right now.
Who?
Indiana.
Oh, I think Indiana got as far as they should have gotten this year.
I mean, maybe you can beat Houston because one guy.
I think they could have won last night's game if they didn't get out rebounded by 20 rebounds.
Put it like this, Steve. If they played 10 times, how many times do you think Indiana beats Miami?
3 or 4.
I think 1 or 2.
I think 3 or 4. Well,
the difference in the
I say 4.
What do you think, Brian? Give us the number.
I think the game was
close. I'd say 4 out of 10. I'll be optimistic.
Yeah, I don't
know. Well, I'm not optimistic. I think that Woody.
Well, actually, only win 3 out of 10 would be bad. All right, so here you go. Dabney has a question. We'll give it to Steve because he kind of already answered it. Regardless of what you know now with recruits and all other factors, will IU make the NCAA tournament next year? Just take a stab at it.
Yes, I predict Indiana will make a run at the Final Four. I don't know if they'll get there, but they'll make a run at it. I think they're.
I would say this though, and then we'll get Brian's. I'm not going to predict yes or no because I think it's too early with the transfer portal, all the other stuff that goes into effect here. I expect Indiana to make the tournament. Put it like that, Brian.
I'd say if everybody stays, and we picks up somebody good in the portal, I say yes, but we don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
you don't think they'll make the tournament?
No, I said they'll make the tournament. I said if everybody stays.
Well, that's his question. Read the damn question, Brian.
Yeah, come on, Brian.
Christ almighty.
Here's the question again. Will IU make the tournament next year? Do we need sign language? Can't you hear or see?
Read that?
Jeez.
I say they make the tournament. Okay, there. I said
Scott Woodson come with remedial reading classes.
Me and Steve stopped picking on each other just because we got you now.
Yeah,
the show's turned out much nicer than me.
Dumbasses anymore.
All right, Kenneth brings up a little NCAA basketball news. Rick Pitino is taking a job at St. John's. It'll tell you everybody at St. John's has nothing but a whore and a prostitute. And we've got Ed Cooley going from Providence to Georgetown. I can tell you this. We'll start off with Ed Cooley. You guys can comment if you want. Ed Cooley's one of the best coaches in the country. He's done an outstanding job at Providence. This is a steal for Georgetown. And with the mess Patrick Ewing left, it's going to take a little while to fix it. But I think Cooley has Providence in the NCAA tournament in 2 years. Or not Providence, but Georgetown. Brian, you got any comment on this one?
Well, I'm kind of surprised at that because I kept hearing I forgot his name off the top of my head. The Penn State coach was like the #1 shot at Georgetown. So this one kind of surprises me. Pitino, nothing ever surprises me with Pitino.
Well, the thing that surprised me with Pitino is anybody's dumb enough to hire this scumbag. And, he's obviously cheated before. But I'm telling you what, when you look at the stuff he did, I mean, he was at an Italian restaurant. He got under the table with the secretary. He had sex with her. He got her pregnant. Then, when he got her pregnant, he paid her boyfriend to marry her. Then, After that happened, they decided they wanted an abortion. So then Ricky Boy paid for the abortion. I mean, Rick Pitino is a total scumbag. And the fact that he is even allowed to coach college basketball is almost as stupid as letting
you what, Brian.
This sounds like absolute the world turns.
Brian, you watch this show. You do not need to watch Young and the Restless.
Yeah.
What did I say there that was not true?
All right, back to it. Back to it. Going forward,
right,
we talked about the game.
Next question.
We flat out got out rebounded.
Hey, Steve, chill out. We got questions.
Oh.
All right. Philip says, please, what chances does pitiful Painter at Purdue have of keeping his job for $11 million per year? I'll go first on this one. He'll keep his job because it's Purdue. Nobody gives a shit about Purdue. Let's face it. In the state of Indiana, there's Purdue fans in West Lafayette. Probably about 50% of the people in West Lafayette are Purdue fans. 25% act like they're Purdue fans because Indiana sucked the last 20 years. But now that Indiana's getting better, West Lafayette will go back to about 50-50 IU and Purdue fans. So I think when you realize Matt Painter is a really good coach, unless it's a big game. So I would say that he would be, similar to what? Dan Marino or Peyton Manning, where he's awesome. But if you get in the playoffs, you may have to do some stuff on your own. You guys have any comment? No, he ain't going nowhere. Who else? Who
Lombardi trophies does Burrows have?
Huh?
How many Lombardi trophies does Burrow have?
He's played 2 years, and he's played the Super Bowl and the championship game. What the hell is your point?
How many Lombardi trophies does Manning have?
In his 8th year, he won one.
He has 2.
He has 2.
He played for a third one.
Dude, I don't want to hear this shit. He played for 3.
He never wants to hear it when he's wrong.
No, because
Mike, yeah.
You know this. The Super Bowl he lost was a pick 6. It was a horrible throw by him.
All right, let's get off that. This isn't the NFL show.
Of course you want to get off that because you know you're
going to start that back up in a couple weeks.
Plus the fact that, Rick Pitino and Peyton Manning are very similar.
Mike, I got to also talk about
Robert
tonight at
says,
7:30.
Kentucky coach.
Tonight at 7:30 California time, I think 10:30 Eastern time. Stuck in the catch fence. The best, up and fastest growing.
Did you just cut him off?
Yeah, he hadn't even realized it yet.
I realized it. The fastest growing and best NASCAR show.
I thought you quit that show.
Listen tonight. The show got better tonight. Trust me.
There you go.
The show improved 33% tonight. I guarantee you.
I can't see the comment. I got a blue box over the comment. Painter. Hold on here.
Stuck in the catch fence.
Can we drop Purdue into the MAC
let me address Matt
when
Painter.
UCLA and USC come in? Address what? I don't even remember the question now.
The question
will Painter stay?
What are his chances
to keep his job for $11 million?
Matt's a good basketball coach, and I know the president of University of Louisville. I worked with Mitch Daniels when he was state director for Luger, and I was public affairs director for Dan Quayle in politics. I know.
Does that mean you're in charge of who he cheated on his wife
with? Mitch is not a guy who does knee-jerk reaction.
Brian? Public affairs. Go ahead.
Yeah. The speech Quayle did it and wrote down potato. I wrote that speech. That's why I don't write for Grueling Truth, Mike.
I think he wrote potato, Steve. I don't think he could read it with an E, you dumbass.
I told him he was reading a teleprompter that I wrote and had it up there for him, and I misspelled potato.
Well, it'll probably be like your background behind you where it's ass backwards and you can't figure out how to write it straight. All right.
Anyway, Matt Painter is fine at Purdue. He will not be gone. He's been there, 17 years, 18 years? Some long time.
He's been at least 15.
He's been there since Katie left. So I think Katie left in
20.
Katie left in 2004, I think.
Matt just I can't figure out why he cannot coach in the tournament and his teams don't do well in the tournament. He has talent and he proves it all season long, and I do not understand why Purdue consistently pukes on themselves in the tournament.
Keedy didn't either.
Huh?
Keedy didn't go deep into the tournament either.
I think
Keedy choked all the time too.
Man, they've got this place here called Triple X Burgers.
Is that a strip club plus hamburger, Steve?
No.
Because that's probably the only way you go
It's a
to
That's
hamburger
it.
triple
joint.
D.
It's triple X burgers, and I'm gonna tell you what, their burgers are great, but do not. I got talked into this. I went there one time. We were going to a high school football game up in Edgewood. My son's team, he was quarterbacking for Hamilton Southeastern. We were playing Edgewood or Lafayette Jeff, one of the two. And we stopped at Triple X. I got a hamburger with peanut butter on it. Oh, God, don't do that. Don't ever get that burger. It's their famous burger, too. That says a lot about why Purdue cannot get in the tournament. I'm sure they eat peanut butter hamburgers.
What in the fuck are you talking about, Risley?
I'm rambling.
I thought so. Huh. I don't know about you, Brian, but I was confused for a while.
Mitch is not the president of Purdue
I thought there
anymore?
was some. Don't talk about Key
left
Triple
Purdue.
X. I don't know.
I've been in Indiana in 7 years, so I wouldn't know that. Mitch is not the president of Purdue. Oh, God, there go my Purdue tickets.
You didn't have any. Phil Steele says, you guys are very good chemistry together. Keep it up. 17 years.
Oh, God.
That's how long. 17 years is how long.
We have to do it 17 years, then, you know.
Good chemistry.
Michael, be taking
hey, who said that? Philip, you should see us in the bedroom. There ain't no chemistry there.
That's just you and Brian because I'm too young. You guys would be pedophiles. Sometimes teams just get bad luck getting paired up with a team that had their number athletically. But Indiana have been better off going with the 2-3 zone. We talked about it earlier in the show.
Yes,
I think yes. I mean, it would have made sense.
But I say this, hindsight's 2020. We can sit here and say what should have, could have. But I think retrospectively, I think what it signals to me is Woody's got to be willing to insert a zone and use it and practice it during the season.
Basketball's different today. I think if Bob Knight, if you moved right now's basketball to 1976, I think that Bobby Knight would have a completely different take on everything because you didn't have a three-point line. Sure. I mean, with no three-point. But, all right, Michael says, does Twin Peaks have good fun too, Steve?
Oh, I love Twin Peaks. I just watched the Undercover Boss about
Is
Twin
he talking
Peaks.
About Becky?
No, Twin Peaks is a restaurant chain out on the west. It's like
it's in the Midwest, too.
Hooters. It's kind of a Hooters, tilted skirts or tilted kilts.
There's one in Florence, Kentucky. I would tell you all about it, but they're not a sponsor.
What do you have in Florence, Kentucky? What do they have?
They got a Twin Peaks there.
Twin Peaks, yeah.
I've never been because it's half-naked women. And
it is half-naked women.
I really don't want to eat with half-naked women walking around. I don't want to pube in my hamburger or something.
I have not been to a Twin Peaks because there's not one in Los Angeles. Crap, we only got one Hooters in Los Angeles.
Becky,
how bad is that?
Well, Hooters is terrible anyways. And you know what? Hooters may sound like a good idea, but if you live in Indiana or Kentucky, you don't want to see those women half naked.
Oh, they have a Twin. That's right. They do have a Twin Peaks in Castleton. I know.
Michael says Becky used to live by
Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it's that old airplane restaurant. Used to have the plane on top of it.
Okay, hold on. We got another actual basketball question for Robert. Robert says PU plays inside out, just like we did this year. Inside out doesn't relate to NBA or the dance. I agree with him completely, and things need to change. And Robert says Twin Peaks has horrible wings. I assume he's talking about, which I don't know. Okay, I never ate them.
Let me address the deal about Purdue and play inside out.
Hey, I ate at the Twin Peaks in 96th Street.
Remember, in the game that Purdue lost, the big kid, Edie, only touched the ball once in the last 12 minutes of the game.
Yeah,
they didn't play inside out and got their ass handed to them by Farley Dickinson, okay? So if they had played inside and out, playing against the shortest team in the tournament, they probably would have advanced.
Yeah.
And saved some embarrassment. So I'll buy it in the NBA. The 7'4" guy doesn't survive in the NBA. Somebody made that comment earlier. I'll buy that.
Yeah, I don't think Edie makes it.
But in college ball, having an Edie is a great asset in college ball.
It used to be in the NBA. Used to be in the NBA, but there's not many to use them anymore.
You don't think he can play at all, Steve, or just not a starting role?
Where, in the NBA?
Yeah.
I think he's got to put on about 50, 75 pounds to play in the NBA.
Edie?
Huh? Well, you go weigh 480 pounds.
How much does he weigh now?
He's over 300
Yeah,
now.
he's like 7'4".
Well, he's got the muscle up.
Muscle up. Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think he would have to get quicker and be able to shoot threes better. I think it's according to what style an NBA team wants to play.
Well,
with.
yeah, that's a great point, Mike. That's the point I was just getting ready to make. Is that the NBA style of play doesn't allow for a 7'4" because he's only got one thing he can do, and that's sit on the blocks.
Hey, I want to address this real quick with Robert. He says, so we do have to get a big and a portal. I says portable, but I assume portal or porta potty. But you got Malik Renaud. Let him play. Brian, Steve, am I wrong here? I think the dude's going to be able to play.
Are you talking about
He's
Robert?
talking about getting bigs. I think we got a big dude at Renaud. I know y'all don't like him. I know Brian hates him.
Well, you want to develop Renaud. If we can find a viable big in the portal, another 6'7", 6'8" guy that can play big, I think you go try and get that guy. But I don't know that we're going to live and die with that player, or we're going to live and die if we get him or not. It'd be a nice addition to our program.
It'd be nice to have some guys that could shoot and so I could play point guard.
Yeah, that'd be nice too. We'll see when Johnson comes back what he can contribute on ball handling, and we'll see what Shafino can do playing the two. I think that's as critical as anything right there. That strengthens our guard play, Mike, and puts us in the elite class or maybe more elite class of guard play that you've talked about all year that you think controls
guard play is what wins. And if you look at every team in here, like I told you, the way I picked my games,
got chemistry, Mike. We have chemistry.
Hey, the way I pick college basketball games is this. I think 70% of the time, the team with the better, especially if they're quicker, backcourt wins. And I can tell you this, if you look at the bets I make this year, the betting articles suggested with the right, I think I hit like 66% this year, basically picking it like that. Now, I will admit this. I think it'd have been 70% if I'd have, wrote articles saying IU was going to lose. But then Brian would ban me from the Got Woodson Facebook page he runs because he doesn't like negative people.
Not me.
You do like negative people?
Yeah, Brian.
I talk to you.
You got to be a little more open to people's comments.
I'm not negative. I was right. All right. So.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me ask a question. If we've got Duncan and we've got Renaud.
Do we know Duncan can play?
We don't know.
Exactly.
I heard it.
So
guess who's out in the? Oh, I forgot to say who's out in the portal. Jamison Battle out of Minnesota is in the portal.
Okay.
He's 6'7".
Bill says.
I'm gonna tell you the thing about it. Indiana basketball is a place people are going to want to come.
Wait a second. Bill says Edie reminds me of a slower, weaker, less effort example of Rick Smith. Rick Smith was a perimeter player, though. A lot of times, hell, Rick Smith go hit a three on you.
Rick Smith adapted to the NBA style of play better than any 7'4" guy I've ever seen.
Yeah, because most 7'4" guys can't play. Well,
they couldn't play, but Rick Smith had a great long career in the NBA, and
Edie's not going to play in All-Star games the way that Smith did.
No. Rick Smith was a anomaly for 7'4" guys in the NBA.
All right, Balin's on here. I do know this. Balin's not bringing up Scottsburg High School because Balin always messages about him. I looked up to see what they did in the tournament. I think they lost a close game in the night game on Saturday night to just miss going to the state championship game. But he says get some shooters. Kenneth says we at least need a good backup. But really, what do we do against Edie if he does return, or Dickinson if he comes back?
Same thing we did this year. Edie didn't. No, obviously he didn't beat us. We beat Purdue twice. So
yeah, and really the second time we beat him with our guards making all their shots. If I remember,
I thought Indiana did a great job of neutralizing Edie. I mean, Trace Jackson did it, and Shafino did it. They neutralized Edie, and then the rest of our team outplayed their team.
Michael said he still sees Rick Smiths all over Indy. So, Michael, if you
he lives in Zionsville.
Get him the phone number so we can have him on the Indiana basketball show.
He lives in Zionsville. He's got a big spread. He loves to ride motorcycles, and he has one of the largest private
It's not a motorcycle. It's a motorcycle.
Okay, motorcycle. He has one of the largest private collections of Plymouth and Dodge Superbirds that there is. Now, Superbird, as you might recall, if you watch Stuck in the Catch Fence, you'll learn about the Superbird. It was a NASCAR that had the pointed wing, a front end, and the big wing on the back.
And who made it?
Mike, don't make fun of Stuck in the Catch Fence.
What are we talking about right now?
You're talking about the Dodge Daytona.
I had a Dodge Daytona in 1990. The ladies loved it.
Matter of fact, one of my son's claims to fame is he dunked on Rick Smith's kid in a AAU game.
Let's see. Michael Houghton says, should IU go after Edey? Hell, I would. And why not?
I
would. We ain't got to
be,
defend him no more.
Hell, why would you not go after Edey if you can get him?
Yeah.
But Edey ain't going to IU. I can guarantee you that right now.
He's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere. Yeah.
All right. Dabney says Mopar.
I love Mopar, Dabney. I have a Ram pickup truck. That's what I drive.
All right. Bayless says
475 horsepower in that baby.
Bayless,
you know how light a pickup truck is when there's no weight in it?
I'm trying to tell what happened to the Scottsburg basketball team on their road to the state championship.
Look at Balin. And my dad had the 69 Dodge Super B.
Yeah.
Is the competition orange or grabber yellow? Or petty blue? With the portal, who should we get? Who should we get a big?
Should we get a big? Of course we should get a big. We should get a big.
Come on, Michael. You run a website. Isn't Michael the guy that runs the Red Chair?
It's not a website, Steve. It's the Red Chair Group, IU Red Chair Group
on
Facebook.
With that kind of stupid comment, he obviously threw the red chair somewhere.
Balin said it was yellow. Unfortunately, I zoned out when you were doing your 20-minute talk there, and I don't know anything.
Grabber yellow, man. That's a great color.
I had a yellow Barracuda.
We have
Grabber
Phil.
Yellow.
Hey, yeah. Steve, how do you stand up to Rick Smith? You're 6'8". Does Smith seem bigger than 7'4"?
You know, it's a funny thing, Philip, and I'll actually say this. At 6'8", you don't look up to many people. I mean, you do in stature, but not in size. Okay? And I've stood next to Rick Smith.
Not in stature, but in size.
Stature means Rick Smith is a more popular human being in Indianapolis. He has greater stature in the city than I do. Okay. All right. So size means when I went up to him while my son was getting a ball signed by Rick Smith, and I stood next to him and talked to Rick for a few seconds, it was weird looking up at somebody. I'm not used to that at all. So yeah, at 6'8", when you go to somebody 7'4", I understand how all you freaking midgets feel talking to me all the time.
He's talking to you.
Yeah, I'm biting him with a shit.
I'm over 6 feet, so I'm not a midget. The average size male is 5'10". How tall are you, Brian?
5'10".
Brian?
5'10".
Okay, Becky is going to come to your house next time she's in Florida, get a tape measure out, and measure you to make sure you're 5'10".
Am I horizontal or vertical when this measurement comes?
You're like a dirty old man, aren't you?
I got it from Riz. So
you're probably one of those dudes that's kind of nodding off watching the game, and a 18-year-old cheerleader comes on, and you wake the hell right up, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
All right, Michael says, I did not throw a chair. We were at Duffy's in Sarasota last night during the game.
All right, let's get off.
Okay, hold on, we got more. Did Riz see Grace Berger blocking shots in the Lady Hoosiers win? Was that tonight, Robert?
No, it's coming up. Here you go. Tennessee's beating Toledo 94-47, 2-1. 25 minutes, we can all start watching the Lady Hoosiers and cheer them on. That's our basketball team that's going out there playing. Treat them like we treat. Matter of fact, Mike, we're going to do a show next week on the Lady Hoosiers game. So you got to watch it.
Who you doing?
I got it on right here.
Who you doing it with?
What? Watching
you and Brian gonna do
it? Okay, you male chauvinist pig.
I'm not a male chauvinist pig. I just like to watch the best. All right, guys, we are gonna. And I'm not.
Stanford got beat. Stanford got beaten. The girls, they're out. It's South Carolina and Indiana in the girls' game. I picked it up, guys. I'm ready to talk girls basketball.
Miami.
Here, also,
Indiana, question about Larry Miami, Riz.
No, Larry Bird. I'll tell you what, though, Philip. I played against Larry Bird in pickup games. I never played against him in an official competition game. But you want to talk about the dirtiest son of a buck that ever played basketball and could trash talk like there is no tomorrow. It's Larry Bird.
That's what me and Steve have in common. We both played pickup basketball against Larry Bird because I was at Indiana State in 1987 when Eddie Bird, his brother, was there, and Larry used to come and trash us all. very violently. And he said a lot of mean, bad words. I set him back, though, because that's back when I wasn't such a good person.
we were playing pickup ball at Butler. And I mean, everybody was there. That was when Licklider was the coach, and he would open up the gym privately, and there was guys from all over. I mean, Kellogg and Williams would come over. I mean, you know, all the IU guys, the Purdue guys would come down. Sometimes the Michigan and Michigan State players would come down, and we just run and play. Bird came and played one time, and I blocked his shot, and
he did not. Man. There's no way you blocked his shot.
He did not like that.
Yeah, because you fouled him.
I probably did.
And you're probably one of those assholes that wouldn't call it.
But I paid for that for the rest of the night. That wasn't worth a block.
All right, Miami versus Indiana, round 2 from Dabney. Thanks for listening tonight, Dabney. Except this time we get Miami and Bloomington. Let's hope for a great crowd. When's the Sweet 16 for the ladies start, Brian?
Steve's watching. He's got it right there. Let Steve tell you.
I don't know. Game starts in 6 minutes.
I said the Sweet 16. So
look
this
at that.
Is the thing.
I'm watching right now. They're showing the banners, and they focus on the 81 banner. How about that?
Oh, there
That's
you go.
Stuff.
Somebody says nice things about you. Robert says, just want to say glad I found this podcast talking with a legend, Steve Risley. That's a bitch, people. I mean, Wikipedia me. Wouldn't have found it without Got Woodson. There you go. Got Woodson. I believe me and Steve came in about the time you started it.
Well, I'll debate the legends, Robert. That's awful kind of you, but legends are like Isaiah and Quinn and Scotty.
Steve, just take it, Steve. Damn. Just take it.
Okay.
Just take it.
Just trying to be humble.
You're in the Hall of Fame. Don't be humble, Steve. You got a ring. I know, because like randomly in the last 8 years, probably 47 times in the middle of the night, I would get a text. I would open up my phone, and it'd be his fucking ring right there. And he'd say, I got one of these. You got one.
Yes, Philip, it's Risley, not Ridley. And yes, I was a Lawrence Central Bear.
Yeah. Hey, and Phil, little trivia question. Lawrence Central in 1977 lost in a regional semifinal to a school of like 500 students. Do you know who that was? What team beat Steve Risley in the 1977 Hinkle Fieldhouse semi-state?
Google it.
Brian, do you know?
He's
no,
Googling.
I have no
Give
clue.
him a chance. You don't know, Brian?
No clue.
No, I don't.
Never watches
Brian, you're not a IU basketball.
I'm from northern Indiana. I'm not from Indianapolis.
They didn't really play basketball in northern Indiana.
Yeah, just ask Dockich.
You know what? I claim that as one of my greatest feats ever, is getting to play twice, winning the Hinkle sectional twice, and winning the Hinkle regional. That was second only to winning.
Wait a second. Robert spelled Aurora wrong. Ahora.
All right, let's wrap this up because we're just rambling now.
Dude, we have more listeners now than we did when we talked about the game, so we may just start getting out here and talking.
What do we know? Brian, give us a rundown on the girls' game.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
There'll be 5 players from Miami and 5 players from Indiana.
You don't know anything about the girls? You got a site called Got Woodson, which is about Indiana basketball. You know nothing about the girls' game.
Does it say? It says Got Woodson. Is Woodson the coach of the girls' team?
He's good friends with the coach. They they support each other tremendously. Knight never did that with the women's basketball team.
I don't think
he wouldn't
you
let
didn't
them
even know they had a women's basketball team.
I didn't know they did.
You didn't say you didn't even know they had a women's team when you were playing?
That is what he said.
No, Knight wasn't real fond of them coming on the court. They came out and stood around on the edge of the court one time as we were winding up practice, and they were dribbling the ball and making noise, and typical Knight went off.
How come they don't give odds on the women's games?
They do.
They do.
Just not much. I think Indiana beats Miami tonight, something like 70.
I do too. I think Indiana plays for the national championship in girls basketball, women's basketball.
Well, this is the thing, Steve. The Hoosiers women, unlike the men, can score. They average 81.3 points per game.
I'm going to tell you what. I watched their last game. They're good.
Yeah.
They're
That's what we
really,
just
really
said.
good.
But I think this. I think the difference tonight from watching the Miami women and the Indiana women is the same thing we saw last night, only the roles are reversed. And Indiana has way too many athletes for Miami. And I also think this. I think that Indiana in the Big Ten plays in the better conference. You know, they battled Iowa 3 times this year. And when you look at that, Maryland's really good. You know, they got a road win against Tennessee. You got Ohio State's always good in women's college basketball. So when I look at it, I think Indiana wins this game by 15 to 20 points. And with that being said, our next show will be to preview the Indiana women's run into the Sweet 16, Steve. So you're going to have homework to do.
Here come the girls. They look good.
Steve, don't say it like that. It's not creepy.
Couple comments here. Kenny Montgomery died last year. Yes, Michael, I didn't know that. It's very sad. Kenny was part of a group of myself, Tommy Horner, Roger Berkman, Joey Brunk, a bunch of guys that got together, and we kind of traveled and played a lot during the summer. There was another kid from Perry Meridian that was Monty's buddy, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Maybe you'll remember it, but he was a player too, and a good player. And Kenny Montgomery was a class act all the way. Philip says, go back to playing against the Van Arsdales. Tell you what, I got to know the Van Arsdales because they like Knight a lot. And you talk about two of the classiest guys that have ever represented Indiana basketball. Now, they were pre-Knight, obviously, but they loved Knight. They respected Knight. They loved Indiana basketball. And you know, I hope we get back to that, to where all the former players garner the respect and are welcomed back like the Van Arsdales were.
Well, I can tell you
and
this.
Come back. With
the Van Arsdales, you always wonder what would have happened if they'd have been allowed in the NCAA tournament, because a lot of people don't remember Indiana basketball for the first half of the 60s was on probation. Couldn't go to the tournament because of what the football team did in 1958 when they hired a new coach.
Rostakowski, right, Michael?
Who screwed a lot of stuff up, and they ended up, it almost killed the Indiana basketball program, because a lot of people didn't see the Van Arsdales play for Indiana because they were on probation. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap this up. We're at 1 hour and 6 minutes. I told my wife it'd only be a half an hour, so we're gonna have to wrap it up. I want to ask everybody to keep an eye out for our next show, because we will do at least one.
Well, I'm gonna say, Mike, let's do a show. Let's do a season wrap up show with the three of us next week, and we'll just put our thoughts together and wrap up the season. What do you think, Mike? You're in charge here.
Sure, that's fine. That sounds exciting.
No, I think it does. And you know what, Mike, I'll talk to you. We could always boot Brian and get like Kitchell or somebody like that important on her.
Yeah, I don't care. We can boot Brian whenever you want for Kitchell or Whitman. He'd probably let her listen to Kitchell or Whitman and actually talk himself.
I'm pretty sure I could get rid of Brian and we could get Chuck Franz.
That would be awesome. Just don't let him know about this show. If he watches the old ones, he may have issues with me. He may be
pissed.
He may have issues with me. Phil says you guys are great. Thank you, Phil. Balin says it was a hell of a season. Go IU.
It was a great season.
And remember this. If you want to talk to Risley, you can ask him questions on Twitter. Just go to @SRisley34. Brian Moore, who's a dirty, no good whore. You can find him on the Got Woodson Facebook page.
Wow. What? It's been a rough night.
I'm in a good mood.
Here's a guy who doesn't want you to use the GD.
Yeah, because I'm using the Lord's name in vain.
And he says that about you. What kind of hypocrisy is that?
That's not even a bad word, though. That's the noun.
That's what happens when you got the guy running the show.
So I know. You give him the buttons. I know.
Right. Once again, the numbers are higher now than we talked about last night's game.
Let me hit the button. Hit the button. Hit the button, Mike. Just punch one of us out. It's going to be me.
Hey, let's do this.
Don't be so sure.
I bet if we sit here and try to see who doesn't say anything for the longest, it'll be Steve Risley who will talk first. Okay, so Steve lost. He was the first one to look away. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. Make sure you check Riz out at SRisley34. You can follow me at Grueling Truth. Brian Moore hasn't figured out Twitter yet, but we're going to his house. Michael and Becky from the IU Red Chair group will go down and help him so he can get through the time. And I also want you to check out Gott Woodson.
I got to say one thing. We've made Becky a star. Now Robert Stewart is saying hi to Becky. Becky's going to become like a superstar.
Michael, good night to you. And Becky, Robert, good night to you.
Screw Michael.
Dabney, everybody that asked questions tonight, everybody that watched, we really appreciate it. We will be back at the latest next week on the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show. Make sure you like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Check us out on Twitter
tonight
at Grueling
at
Truth.
10:30. Pick up Stuck in the Catch Fence.
Stuck in the Catch Fence with Joe and
you the show
Ryan.
will have a 33% improvement tonight.
Probably 40. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. So for Brian Moore, my new best friend, Steve Risley.
Go IU, Philip.
I'm Mike Goodpasture. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.